Hi, this is Bruce Rawles. I'm talking with Jackie Laura Jones again, and we're going to talk about stability and instability or unstability. I guess they're both words in A Course in Miracles today. And welcome, Jackie. It's always a delight and a joy to talk with you about the course, and I always enjoy our conversations. So, what's new in
Oh,
your dreamscape?
yes. Yeah. Hey, Bruce. Thanks so much. I love getting together to do these talks. I always say we used to do them a lot more frequently, and now, I'm trying to get back to doing them a little more frequently with you because it's so fun. I know. And we're always on the same page. Like you guys watching, sometimes I'll just email something, but I don't email a topic. Bruce comes back. How about this? And I'm like, I was just going over that concept with a client. Or I'll suggest something to Bruce. He's like, oh, I was just reading this or doing like
Minds are joined.
minds are joined. We seem to be always on the same page
Yeah.
with our topics. It's pretty wild. I know. So yeah, so yours is great. You emailed me from an unstable thought system, an unstable world seems to arise, and how not to be upset by the instability we set up. Excellent. Because we're
So,
always upset, aren't we?
well, if
Things.
we're not paying attention to how we're feeling, and if we're not at peace, that's the clue. That's the correction.
Yeah.
That's
Ex-
the reading on the dashboard that says you're off course. That's the GPS voice that says if you want to get back on course, turn left here or turn right here, take the next
ex-
exit or whatever. And
Exactly. What's your saying about the upsets and the setups again? I
oh,
forgot.
I think it's just fun wordplay that the upset is really what seems to be out in the world, but we've forgotten that it's really the setup in the mind
That's
that's
right.
the choice of teachers that
Yeah.
is the real cause. Yeah, which kind of ties into something that I've found more and more helpful of late, and that is that the world isn't the problem. That our egos would insist and demand that we agree with that notion, that propaganda, um, because it's that the world is really a reflection of a thought system that also isn't the problem, because the ego thought system is completely made up. So if we made it up, then logic would dictate that there's some way that we could unmake it, especially if it's made up, if it's not real.
Right.
We just have to stop believing in it. And so the decision-making mind is the decision-making faculty of the mind is what our beloved teacher Ken Wapnick would say is really at the heart of what the course is Course in Miracles, that is always reminding us to look at, and that is, what teacher am I using at any given moment? Is it the teacher of kindness, the teacher of forgiveness, the teacher of shared interest, or the one that just throws all that out the window and says, everybody for themselves. It's run for your lives. Yeah,
Everybody for themselves. Oh yes, I
I mean,
know.
because
It's
that,
a
but that's kind of what it boils down to, doesn't it seem?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I know in a lot of circles, people will say, "Oh, we're moving from a service to self to a, service to others too." Mentality, kind of shared interests, moving into the whole and everything like that. I feel like when I choose, I love your term, the inner kindness teacher, but when I'm in that part of the mind, it's so different. The
Mhm.
way it's hard to even put into words. I know I always go through this one time, but because it's an inner experience, but um there's no Jackie having to decide and doing the doing of things. I find myself just floating around, literally. Sometimes it feels like floating from one activity to the next. The body of Jackie's doing this, the body of Jackie's doing that. And when I get upset after practicing this for so many years, I'll get triggered about something, old will come up, whatever it is. We all know we can say, something triggers us. For some reason, it's an automatic switch. And I go, oh my gosh, yeah. I set that up well, didn't I? Or I'll say something like, my mind remembers right away that in that moment, I can make a decision of how I'm interpreting that. And I do remember that I set it up. It's been incredibly helpful to me to know that. And then it's empowering to kind of take responsibility. And there's a detachment that comes with that. This wasn't always in the very early years when I was practicing. I was still like, oh, Jackie, the body's doing this. Look at me. I'm doing all the, but now there's more of a detachment, like, oh, a healthy detachment. I'll clarify that. Not an uncaring, a
Right,
healthy,
exactly.
a healthy detachment of, gosh, now your script is doing that. Now the body's doing that. Now you're doing that. Oh, isn't that interesting how you're still triggered on that? Oh, that's interesting. Oh, did that come from childhood when you were, oh, wow, interesting. Just watching the thoughts go, no analyze, whatever. And just being back in the content of that observing mode. The ego has to judge and be critical, can't survive without it. So when we're not doing that, that is the choice for the Holy Spirit, even though you're
Yep.
not maybe sometimes making an active choice. You're just that you're in the ego mind and not judging yourself. It is the choice for the Holy Spirit. And so I sit there and I'm just watching everything go by, and I'm like, wow, interesting. And then sometimes things it just stops. There's nothing to defend against. There's nothing to believe that that's real. There's nothing that I have to feel guilty about. And then sometimes I'm just on to the next second and I'm running over to the desk and I'm taking out a letter and a stamp because I have to mail something. And in the past, it was building the whole drama and the whole story and feeling so guilty. So one of the things I would say that's really been helpful about understanding the concept of projection, understanding that there are two parts to the mind, understanding that we actually have a choice of how we interpret things is I've never studied anything as unique as this, as a Course in Miracles, in that way, that can bring you back relatively quickly. And it's just interesting,
Very, very. And that bringing back is that habit and practice of doing that more and more quickly and more consistently is, I think, at the heart of the course's um, well,
Yeah,
the purpose of the course is basically
right.
to help us do that. And it does that, it seems, through motivation
Yeah.
by showing us, the contrast between how we feel when we're choosing the thought system that is peaceful and is stable and is
Mhm.
reliable and dependable, rather than the one that's incredibly fickle and nonsensical and one
Right.
blows hot and cold, one moment to the next kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
You'll love
Yeah.
this because
Kind of like
you
the Old
love,
Testament God kind of things, like, oh,
yeah.
well, today you're in good graces, but tomorrow that's the smiting day, kind of thing. Yeah.
Right. It's
Yeah.
very up and down,
Yeah. Yeah.
God of the Bible, right? It's
Yeah.
very you're loved, you're not, you're this, you're that. Well, I thought you would like some of the things in book 2,
Okay.
my forthcoming book that will be coming out whenever it
Yes.
comes out. Not really sure, just having to give that over, but it's a work in progress. But I know you like to play on words and everything, so I just put little fun things in there that people can remember, like heal, Holy Spirit ends all lunacy,
Oh, that's good.
right?
That's good.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have that
Yeah.
up here. People can't see, but I have this huge bulletin board, not bulletin board, shoji glass or shoji screen, which with all this stuff on it and these sayings, and it just always helps me, like faith, forget all insanity, trust the Holy Spirit. So I have faith, I have these things written down, and even it just makes me smile sometimes when I'm, sitting around or whatever. I'm trying to make a decision, or I'm thinking I'm getting a little something creeping in there of, well, I don't like this the way it is this way, but I'm trying to remember, I'm trying to practice forgiveness or whatever. I'm like, all right, Holy Spirit ends all lunacy, right? You're not alone. You don't have to make decisions alone. right? And so when I get too much into that, I just like to remember, gosh, that's right, I'm not alone. And things are only complicated here in our resistance to
Yep.
just being
Yep.
in the
Yep.
moment
Hmm.
and remembering that we're connected.
Yep.
That's it. There's
Yep.
no complication in the right mind. There's no strain of any kind, right? And
True.
so I'll sometimes say, what am I resisting right now? Just like we're, talking about. And sometimes I get in touch with something in my world here. And sometimes I just might be, upset for something or whatever. And I'm like, you know what? You woke up this way and you know how to get back, and you don't have to judge yourself for being in this way.
Mhm.
And I'll just walk it back. I remember this is my projection. I remember that I can change my mind about how I feel without denying the feelings. The feelings are important because that's what led me to have the opportunity to remember that I can change my mind, you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm.
And I think that the simplicity of this course is staggering. The popular saying is it isn't easy to practice it. I think when I'm coming together with you, Bruce, in these discussions and the things that I talk about, for me, this is after years of practicing that, I never want to sound like it's like so easy. It does get very simple. You stay in the ego less, but it's because for me, and I might be in the slow class, I mean, but I've been practicing for years.
We,
So
we all are, otherwise we wouldn't be
right.
still thinking we're separate selves, right? Really
Right.
seemingly separate selves. Yeah. For the
Yeah.
most part, even though, yeah.
Right. So I just know that when I say it's simpler and quicker now, it is
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure. But that's
Yeah.
after many years of dedicated and wanting to practice it because it was just so fun for me. I loved absorbing the material and applying everything to my life. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been waiting for something like this because I know something was going on with the world. I know it was insane. I know something was not right. Well, it's not really here. It's a projection. And then I learned that and I was just home free, meaning I believed that. And then my work was beginning with doing, applying everything to my life, right?
like
But
like
I,
the like it says in the end of the course is this isn't the end, it's a beginning. Basically, it's like,
right,
what?
yeah.
I've read the whole thing and now it tells me this is just the beginning. It's like, oh, okay,
Uh,
oh, now I have to apply it. And I think that's kind of like
yeah.
the
Oh yeah.
yeah, we got
Now now
now
the
that we
work
kind of got
begins.
the theory. Now it's like, oh, now I got to make this a 24/7 experience. Oh yeah,
Right.
but that's what we need to be motivated to do. And I think you touched on. I love your acronyms, but by the way, those are great. And I think acronyms and wordplay and mnemonic devices, all that kind of stuff can be helpful. And and when those don't seem to come to mind, there's one, since you mentioned simplicity, one
Yeah.
really simple technique, and that is, how do I feel?
Love it.
Because that's
Exactly
really,
right.
if I can notice how I'm feeling and notice that if I'm not at peace, I must have chosen the wrong teacher. And that's really the simplicity of salvation, isn't it? Yeah. And the
It
salvation of the course
totally
is
is.
not anything having to do with admitting sin is real. It's basically just the opposite. It's basically saying that the entire thought system of separation, substitution, and specialness, which are my three go-to words for expanding letters SIN, that those are really just part of that made up nightmare that we can learn to forgive. And like you're saying, just if it comes more and more quickly with practice, it
Mhm,
just means that we're willing to accept the grace that's available to us by
mhm.
not fighting the love that's behind the hate that the ego would convince us is our identity.
Right.
Yeah. I'm
Yes.
picturing Mr. Magoo. If you remember those cartoons where
I do
he's
remember
walking
vaguely.
on a beam that's it's pivoting around in midair like 4 or 5 stories up, and he's completely oblivious to the fact that he's up there on this beam walking along, and he
Oblivious.
steps off the beam into midair just as another beam comes by, and then he continues to walk on the next beam, and then when he's done walking on that, that next beam is just lets him off on a platform, but he's completely oblivious to the whole thing. And I think
to what's
I,
going
I think that's kind of like our trajectory through this dream is we're all clueless.
on.
The course says, we still think our understanding is an important contribution to the truth and makes it what it is. And it's like, well, not really.
Yeah,
No, probably
yeah.
not. Probably not. But when we trust the process of Holy Spirit's forgiveness classroom and just notice more and more when we're not feeling peaceful, and
Yeah.
and sometimes it can seem like things are getting worse, but it's really just I think we're just noticing more. Um,
That's an excellent point. I do have a lot of clients that say, over the years, I feel like things are getting worse. So,
Maybe not.
my advice is different for each, whatever the particular
Sure,
thing that they're
sure.
working on. But in general, you're right. Just more resistance comes up from the
Yep,
ego the
yep,
more you practice,
yep,
right?
yep.
And then people think they're not practicing correctly, or they're not getting a type of relief that they've decided ahead of time that they want, or
Hmm,
like there's
hmm.
many different scenarios. I get really nitpicky with a lot of my clients, and they want that. I'll say, all right, I'm nitpicking this with you. They're like, no, go ahead. But it's just because I've nitpicked all with myself for years. Like, you just have to remember, don't beat yourself up. Don't be, I have clients that say, oh, I can't pick anything. I haven't done anything for 2 months. I haven't practiced. I say, so? And they just look at me. And I'm making the point. I'm like, you have to make a false idol out of A Course in Miracles or out of practicing. Think of the accumulated knowledge that you have. Everybody takes a break or does something or doesn't. And then if you don't take a break and you go right through, good for you. Maybe that's what you're doing, or that's what's helpful. But you're right. I mean, sometimes it just seems to ratchet up, but that's just another trick too. Just look very nonchalantly in your mind, say, oh, look at that. That's ratcheting up again. Or, oh, look at this. And thinking of just staying in that watching mode, witness mode, of observing the machinations of your emotions and what's going on. They're so important. They're the keys. I'm very big on not denying at all feelings or anything like that. But there's such a need to punish, which
Mhm.
Jesus explains, and there's such a need to punish. So we apply that with not doing the course, or not doing it correctly, or not doing often, or so and so does it this way, so and so. Oh, it's just a big distraction to ensnare you. If you're following a practice that helps you feel good, you feel more peaceful, you're more loving towards others, you're more forgiving, you feel like something has changed, it good for you. Do that, whatever that is, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think it's back to the word grace, which I think is this just seems like it just sort of happens when we allow um, the unstable dream to be unstable, but find the stability that's in our own mind with the Holy Spirit's help. That is really the stability of seeing that the innocence that we want to feel inwardly, when we're willing to look through Holy Spirit's vision, if you will, and consider that that may be the reality of everyone that we meet or think about, um, then that becomes our own. And then there's sort of a grace that happens. And the grace, I was thinking about the words grace and disgrace. And I was thinking,
Oh,
the ego shames and blames and, points the finger at um, everything that it doesn't like, and it calls it disgraceful, but that's
never
only
even thought of that way,
only
believe it or not.
well, I
Disgrace.
hadn't much either until just now. I was just thinking, well, I like to play with words, as you know, but I was thinking, well, that's some kind of a judgment. That's some kind of a condemning thought that says, well, this is not as it should be, you know.
Mhm.
But the entire world, in a sense, is made up. So who are we to foist interpretations on anything, um, unless we think we're a who
Yeah. Right.
instead of a what, which is I think the course suggests that. maybe
Yeah.
our real identity is a mind, which is a
Right.
what, that instead of the who that we've
Yeah.
made up and so
Yeah.
identified with. Yeah.
Great point. I love that grace because that's one of my favorite words, grace, and then disgraceful. You know, I think that, and this is one of the things that I can't really put it into words either. It's an inner experience for people, however they experience it. But we see all these disgraceful things in the world. And to your point about the course training us where that's coming from, they're just images the mind has made up. They're
Mhm.
not really there. It's a difficult one for people. Bear with us. It's difficult. But what happens as you're practicing a thought system to like the to heal the mind? A Course in Miracles is very unique, is that with conflict removed, when you start not judging, blaming yourself, right? The projection that goes out, right? You're not judging and blaming that
Mhm.
either. We
Mhm.
can't help it but be here seemingly with the body's eyes, seeing the things that we call bad that are going on in the world. Bodies do bad things. We have wars, we have this, we have corruption, we have that. We don't have to deny that.
No.
But if we can have the courage to take one step and say, yes, the world is this and that, it's the complete opposite of heaven. It's the thought of guilt and the following fear scenarios that gets projected out on the screen into tons of picturing images.
Mhm.
So if we
Mhm.
just have the courage at first, just to say, okay, yeah, I know that's going on in Ukraine. I know this is going on. Am I not denying in an insensitive way, going back and saying, yes, I remember where this is coming from. Oh my goodness. Okay, this is my dream. From that space, you will automatically, the love in that right mind will extend to every scenario. You will be only appropriate in your discussions and there's no need to resist anybody who's talking about something that makes you feel uncomfortable. There's
Mhm.
no need to resist anybody. You can still get your point of view across. You can still get the love will inform how you're meeting the split off parts of yourself
Mhm.
in the
Mhm.
dream so
Mhm.
that the least fear possible can be there. You're joining them in the mind. I hope that makes sense to people because it almost
Completely.
seems
Yeah.
like I'm being insensitive or something like that. But when you're really understanding what's going on, you're actually being very loving,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And the right mind will just meet people where they are, wherever they are, with whatever would be helpful for them at the time. And often that's a normal discussion about worldly things.
Whatever, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
What comes to mind
Yeah.
is a conversation in a study group recently with a fellow course student, and he and his wife, who's also studying the course, uh, um, had occasion to, I think they were waiting for some technician in a store to help with their cell phones or something. Anyway, and there
Okay.
was another couple sitting there waiting, and they sure let's share the bench, and they end up first thing out of the other couple's mouth was something about politics, and and this friend was recounting how he almost kind of took the bait and but he would just kind of in without going into a meditative trance or anything, just kind of connected with the idea that well maybe the thing to do is just to listen and to find the shared interest basically, and he said he ended up having this wonderful conversation that didn't
Oh,
go
good.
in a confrontational uh, direction. Um, but I was thinking, it's the only way that that can possibly work is if we are willing to see the innocence that our egos
Great point.
aren't ever going to see. But if we're
Great
willing to
point.
see the innocence in everyone that we meet,
Mm-hmm.
not on the level of form, but
Right.
on the level of the mind, and uh, and then we're on equal footing. Then the equality is where the stability is, and then from that stability, there's trust and there's peace, and that's the foundation for kindness. Right?
Beautiful, beautifully said. Just remembering the innocence, that goes so beautifully along with what we know about Jesus looking past the body
Mhm,
to
mhm, mhm,
what's behind it, which we're all, the Christ, right?
mhm,
But we also see on the level of form, a step for people would be to remember that the person across from you, or the people, the world at large, whatever is triggering you, right? That's just remembering the fear that's behind that. Sometimes that's a step for people to just
mhm.
remember, wow, well, they're in fear too.
Yeah.
And so they're behaving in a way that, yeah, I seem to be judging, but I can soften my judgment a little bit if I don't want to go all the way back to, oh, it's just a dream. People have a issue sometimes with that. You can just start with, that person is in fear too. And gosh, I've said things or thought things when I've been in fear too, or insecure, unworthy, la, 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 la. Anybody can fill in the blanks. We all
Right.
share that, where sometimes we have to make ourselves feel better, or, you have to make a judgment on someone else. It's really defining you. It's a judgment on yourself. Then when we're ready, we can go back to, but you know what? There are no people. There's no one out there really doing that. It's just an image that my mind has made. Because
Yep.
when I'm in the ego mind and I'm running away from my own guilt, I need to project that out. And I see it everywhere else. So sometimes people are ready to go to that step, and realize this is your dream. Everything's coming from you, and not be offended by that. Like, but I didn't want this. I didn't want to, create this. Well, you didn't on this level.
Mhm,
You
mhm.
didn't as the body. The
Yeah.
one mind made up the whole script. And because there's just one of you here, the mind has tricked you, the ego, into that you're this identity as Bruce or Jackie or whoever, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And so it takes a minute to recall that projection, heal the guilt and conflict in the mind, start to have the awareness that everyone is one and everyone, right? So it's like a process, but there are steps we can take in the meantime, and just recognizing, like you said, Bruce, you see the innocence in people. There is the innocence there, right?
Yeah, and I think the way we do that is typically is to see how much our egos fight that and want to condemn
Great point.
and to keep the projection going, and just kind of like watching the ticker tape and the director's cut of the ego's movie, and just
I love
say,
that.
oh, be upset with that, be afraid of that, be angry at that, be bored with this, be outraged at that, and
Hmm.
or even if it's just the slightest irritation, the most minor annoyance, if we can kind of watch that as
Hmm.
that little drivel ticker tape uh, monologue
Right,
goes past, and just say, do I really need to buy into this? Haven't I?
right,
Doesn't this sound familiar? How did that work before? Oh yeah, it never did work. Never got me
right.
what I wanted. Never got me the peace I wanted.
That's right.
And the tranquil mind that the course reminds us is not a little gift is compromised whenever we indulge in that. And I was thinking maybe we could read one of the quotes that I found about instability.
I
Um,
love it.
this
Let's
is
read it.
from chapter 19, section 4, subsection A. This is in the obstacles to peace, and the first one is the first obstacle is the desire to get rid of it, getting rid of it being peace.
Yeah. Chapter 19. I'm gonna put it in
I'll,
here.
I'll put it in the chat in our,
Oh,
our
good.
our
Okay.
Zoom call here, and that way you can read along. Um,
Oh, good.
it is there
Chat.
we
There
go.
we go.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh, yeah.
did I get the right one? Let's see. No, let's copy that again. Copy, and now let's try that again. It's a little technical aside here. There we go. Okay, there we go.
Love
Um,
it.
yeah. So it goes. This feather of a wish, this tiny illusion, this
Hmm.
microscopic remnant of the belief in sin is all that remains of what once seemed to be the world. It is no longer an unrelenting barrier to peace. Well, that's kind of ways up the ladder, but every moment that we are willing to question all the things that seem like big deals, they kind of
Right,
begin to shrink to these tiny little things, right?
right,
It is no longer an unrelenting barrier to peace. And I think that, like you were saying, is with practice, it becomes almost second nature. I think that the goal of the course is to make it second nature to where it's just automatic.
right,
But even if we just do it more and more frequently and more quickly,
right,
that's huge. That's huge. Okay,
right,
its pointless wandering makes its result appear to be more erratic and unpredictable than before. Yet what could be more unstable than a tightly organized delusional system? Its seeming stability is its pervasive weakness, which extends to everything. The variability this little remnant induces merely indicates its limited results. So from that paragraph, what I get is that, the ego is intrinsically unstable, and it's going to try every trick in the book it can find to try to convince us that, oh yeah, there's stability here. But
right,
but we know from experience that there's nothing in a world of space and time that stays the same.
right.
Our bodies change, our world's constantly changing. You can't turn on
Hmm.
a news program or browse the web or hear a conversation with anyone about anything and
Right,
come to the conclusion that there's stability here. It's just
right.
intrinsically a moving target, right? So
Oh, absolutely. There's something really funny in the preface too that I forgot what it is, but I can't quote, it's escaping me. Something about the ego is unstable in its functioning and all this. It's the funniest quote. I could probably look it up or whatever in the ACIM, wonderful ACIM.org. When you pull up the course that you worked on. So leveling with them. But anyway, I don't know if I can pull it up, but it just explains what the ego is,
yeah,
unstable in its functioning.
yeah,
So that can't be heaven
yeah.
or the
It's
peace
a
of
highly
God.
unstable thought system is what the ego
Yes,
is. Yeah, yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And I just find that after practicing the course for so long, as well as some of those times, yeah, in the early years where you're kind of like, and you just want to not do it or something like that, or you just started practicing it. Now I find that you can be like joyful for no reason,
Mhm.
and everything. And sometimes people will like comment on my personality or say you're a very positive person, and I understand that. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
But I had to learn, I was like, gosh, yeah, just being positive and changing negative thoughts to positive ones, are not looking at them, forgiving them, bringing up the stuff. So
Mhm.
it's great. I can't do it any other way than be positive. But I learned so much about not not denying how you really feel, letting your feelings come up, and really looking at them. And they've been so healing,
Mhm.
Bruce, to do that. And Mark, I have a partner, Mark, who, my husband, who if I would just will like break down, or I'm just getting a chunk of something where I just feel overwhelmed, the guilt has overcome me, for some reason, and I'll just break down, and then I will be like, oh my God, that's right. It's not my fault. I'm not a bad person, which translates into, oh my God, that's right. I didn't separate, when you can walk it back,
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
not going to be
Mhm.
punished. I'm not, and I'll just be like, like, I'm not going to be punished. It sounds so funny, but I'm just sharing, we all have our own experiences, and sometimes I'll just get in the grips, and then I have someone that just, it's okay.
It's
Oh
gonna
my
be all
God.
right. Yeah,
Just listen, yeah.
yeah.
Oh my God. And then I think of you, like funny things that you say, that my sister and I say together, like Bill Murray, like it just doesn't matter, Again, not that your feelings don't matter, but it's just a funny reminder
Yeah, yeah.
that, wow, look at what I'm responding to. Like you just said with the ticker, you're like, oh, here's our life like going by. Oh, I'm going to jump on that because I got a grievance on that, or I'm going to jump on that, And
Right.
I found that I just when I had that little mellow overload thing, whenever that was, can't even remember, I felt so much better because stuff was not buried that I didn't know was
Mhm.
buried. And
Mhm.
I work on this with clients that are working on these types of things. Bring it up. How do you really feel right now? Well, I'm mad, Jackie. I didn't want to, I'm trying to be positive, but I'm mad. I said, good, good. Meaning, not that people want to stay in mad and be anger,
Right, right.
but when you're not honest, there's no classroom for Jesus.
Exactly. We have to
There's
be,
no classroom,
yeah, we have to bring
right?
everything that crosses our mind to
Yeah.
the Holy Spirit,
Yeah.
seemingly good, bad, or ugly,
Good, bad, and the ugly. Yeah.
to
That's right.
to
And speaking
picture
of,
Clint Eastwood.
oh yeah, sorry, didn't
But
mean to
no,
interrupt
no,
you.
I was just thinking about how what you're just saying, is we need to really, be completely honest and open with the Holy Spirit. And in the Course it says we must hide nothing from each other. And then I think it's one of Ken Wapnick's commentaries. He says
Mm-hmm.
it's probably not too likely that Jesus or Holy Spirit is withholding anything from us. So I think the onus is pretty much on us to to drag our skeletons out of the mental closet, and be willing to put them out under the close encounters, you know, supernova light
Yes.
from the sky, so to speak, and watch our grievances and our issues and our fears and our disgraceful thoughts, if you will, vaporize.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just to see that there's nothing there.
Vaporize. That's a great way to say it. Yeah.
Yeah, the Course says,
Vaporize.
the world will merely cease to seem to be. I really like
I
that phrase.
love that. I
Yeah,
love that phrase.
yeah.
Cease to seem to be.
Yeah. If it was ceased to
Oh,
be, that was like, well, okay, then that must have been real.
then
But
it
it
must have
ceased
been real. Right,
ceased
right,
to
right.
seem to be. Well, there's
That's
a big
right.
clue there.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
That occurs to me. You mentioned Ken and that phrase, the world seems to cease to be. I just was at a beautiful wedding in a beautiful setting in Temecula, California, of all places where I used
Mhm.
to go and see Ken
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
speak or whatever. And Mark and I were in Temecula, and I was so enjoying just the peace there. I mean, it's a great city, and we hadn't been there for a while. Incidentally, that's where Mark proposed to me
Huh.
in Temecula. So it's kind of like a double kind of celebration for us, just
Uh-huh.
intern privately for us. We were like,
Sure,
oh yeah, yeah.
sure. Very
And
cool.
so our lovely dear friends, everybody congregated there, and we were taking a walk on the resort grounds where people were staying. Mark was a groomsman. My brother-in-law Gary officiated it, so it
Okay,
was kind of
okay.
like a family. It ended up being also a family affair. We're down
Nice,
there.
nice.
My point is, we were walking in the beautiful grounds, and in my mind, I was thinking of Ken, who used to be there, and all these things. And I had this overwhelming thing of the world cease. I was like, this is all in my mind. I was in Los Angeles 2 days ago. I'm in Temecula now. I had this massive awareness, which happens from time to time, where I'm just looking out and there's no problems or no, like, anything that I could be disturbed about. I was just remembering, oh my God, just we're giving the week over to the Holy Spirit. I mean, we weren't having problems, but I thought if anything were to come up, everything would be okay. I just had one of those moments where I was just transporting, my mind was just in these places. Everything was in my mind. And it's like sometimes you get back from vacation, so you wake up in one place, you go to bed the other place, and it's kind of this weird thing. You're like, wow, I was just in Florida this morning. Now I'm in California. You're like reorienting or something. But I just sat there and I said, just privately to myself, now publicly, but just to share some of my experience, I was saying to myself, Mark and I are walking. I didn't say a word. I could have, but I was just like, I am just so grateful to know that I'm still at home. I'm still at home with my source. My only goal, my only goal is just to let love shine through while I still appear to be here in the dream. There's nothing that I want to do except help be there for people in whatever that is, all the roles. I'm getting a chill because I thought, this is why I love practicing this course, how I feel on a daily basis, a lot of the time, of just not alone, totally connected, focused on how can you best serve, not what you can get, but I'm not, everybody has their own experience. But for me, I just was so in gratitude. I walked back to the room. I looked out. There happened to be people playing golf. It was on this golf resort thing. And I'm looking out. Everything was so relaxing and peaceful. And I knew it was in my mind. I said, I'm going to go drive, get in this thing called a car, go back to Los Angeles. Then I'm going to be in our home there. And I'm still going to be doing the same thing because there's only one thing to do. And that's just be. And if anything comes up, forgive it. There's nothing to forgive. You're just going on in your roles, whatever that is, connected to source. That's the simplicity we were talking about earlier. Not that it's easy to practice it all the time when something comes up. And I do have big things that come up. But the more you practice this and the more you have that willingness, it's easier in the sense that there's just two things to choose between. There's just one thing I have to do here, and that's just be in the right mind and let that extend through in whatever I do. That's easy, right?
Yep. Yeah. And it's that consistency and the simplicity, like you were saying, that leads to the stability. Because if we're constantly vacillating between two thought systems,
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty unstable
It is. And
and
I've been there and
and
I'll go there
frustrating.
again. Yes.
Yeah, and so that's where, I think the I know I've shared this before on multiple occasions, but I think it's just such a helpful phrase in well, I can probably get up pretty fast. This is in the manual in the development of trust section, and
Excellent
it's in the
section.
fifth stage of the development of trust, and it says um, in paragraph says 7, it says, I'll just read that paragraph because I think it really talks
Yeah.
about, well, it even talks about unsettling, which is unstable, if you will. The next stage is indeed a period of unsettling. Well, and this is kind of where this is more of an advanced, if you will, kind of course topic, in the sense that
Mm-hmm.
it's really toward the top of the ladder metaphorically, but it's really, I think, it pertains to every part of our process of undoing the ego. So it says, the next stage is indeed a period of unsettling, in quotes. Now must the teacher of God understand that he really did not really know what was valuable and what was valueless. And
Mm-hmm.
there's part of that instability, huh? All that he really learned so far was that he did not want the valueless and that he did want the valuable. Yet his own sorting out was meaningless in teaching him the difference. We're all clueless here. We need guidance at every step of the way because we're like Mr. Magoo. The idea of sacrifice, so central to his own thought system, had made it impossible for him to judge. Well, sacrifice is an unstable idea too. It basically says that duality happened. There's some things that are better than others. I'm going to have to give up some of the things that are better because that's what reality is. The reality I made up is. And so, anyway, uh, there's sacrifice, right? So the idea of sacrifice, so central to his own thought system, had made it impossible for him to judge. He thought he learned willingness, but now he sees that he does not know what the willingness is for. And here's the sentence that, if the paragraph ended here, it would be very depressing.
I
It
know what you're
says,
going to read. I
yeah,
know.
and now he must attain a state that may remain impossible to reach for a long, long time.
Right.
Yeah. Now,
Ah,
one long would have been enough. Come on now.
right.
Two longs. Yeah.
Got
Okay.
to put
Yeah.
it in there.
You
Yeah.
really, yeah. Yeah, come on. Okay.
Bring it
So,
home. Yeah.
so now the last two sentences. This is our way out of the dark tunnel. There's the light at the end of the tunnel.
The dark tunnel.
He, he must learn to lay all judgment aside and ask only what he really wants in every circumstance. How do I feel? How do I feel? What do I really want? Do I want to entertain and identify with these condemning thoughts? Oh yeah, maybe not. Were not each step in this direction so heavily reinforced, it would be hard indeed. And that those last two sentences are, it's like, wow, that's golden. Because every step
Yes,
is so heavily reinforced because we don't feel peaceful when we're choosing separation, when we're choosing the unstable thought system of
right,
duality and differences and special interests and specialness
right,
and separate interests. Yeah. Yeah.
right. Oh, I love that. I love that you read that. And that is such a great section. And I know everybody feels that way. Like, you go through periods of unsettling or whatever. And I remember Ken saying something, and we've talked about it before, probably, but it was a really good way. And I've used this for years to explain how, how I feel. You get into these periods of unsettling, you think you don't know, whatever. I think when I'm able to just, and everybody has their own imagery or process, but when I'm able to just put everything on the altar, which the decision making mind, to go back and remember, I'm only feeling this way because I chose the teacher of unworthiness, of guilt, of, so that's why I'm feeling that way. So I can
Yep.
intellectualize that, right? And I can say, yeah, gosh, I feel the time spent in the ego mind building a story of why the person wronged you or why you feel guilty because you shouldn't have done something in your past is so small. It's so much less.
Mhm.
And Ken was saying, the ego's there, full ego, full Holy Spirit, but the amount of time you spend in the thought system, the ego thought changes, right?
Mhm.
So your external circumstances, as we know, don't always change or anything like that. But internally, they're coming from you. They only have the power you give them. So me having this script of little unworthiness that keeps like creeping up, or why you should do that, you're not doing enough with this, oh, you didn't contact that person, you forgot, da, 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 da. As you might be, I get inundated sometimes with email, I'll miss something. It's so many people, it's so many things coming through, and I try to look really carefully. And then sometimes I'll miss something or whatever. They come back to, did you get my email 3 weeks ago? I'll be like, oh, they're in a tough spot.
Not
But
to worry though, but because everyone's backlog of billions of messages from Holy Spirit are all in the spam folder, right?
outstanding.
Something like that for the most part, anyway. Yeah.
That's right. All the
Yeah.
spam folders.
I interrupted your story. I
Oh,
hope I
and
didn't derail
uh,
your thought because
no,
oh, good,
for
good.
great reason. That is hilarious. That is a great example of why I love just doing things, talking, just laughing, the laughter, the easy breeziness of it, and you're always so funny and so quick with everything. Yeah. And I don't even, I guess my point, and it doesn't matter, I guess my point was just something like when that my little unworthiness or something comes up, when I remember, I can switch really quickly, and I'm like, oh, that's so funny that you're walking that script back again, or you're trying to, and I recognize, and quickly I get these thoughts of, no one's going to judge you. They're not going to be upset with you. If they are upset with you, you'll fix it. Meaning, I can see you now. I'm going to fit you in next week or whatever it
Mhm.
is. It just, my books are falling. It just softens.
Yeah.
The Holy Spirit, everything just softens. And I just wanted people to know, it just takes the willingness to remember that you're innocent and you're not guilty. It doesn't mean you won't correct things that you need to do, make amends, do apologize or not, whatever it is. It's with such a different starting point, right, Bruce?
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
reset,
And
and then you go in without the judgment of yourself or others.
right,
It's
right.
very different going
Yeah.
forward from that space, isn't it?
It is. It is. As you're saying that, I was thinking with that mindset of wanting to see things as Holy Spirit or Jesus of the Course would say, see things. Um, we don't project our seeming shortcomings or mental lapses or whatever the situation is onto other people, and we don't do it to ourselves either in those saner moments. And then everything that flows from that is going to be, you know, oriented toward healing what was never a problem in truth, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
That's right. Well said. Yeah,
And
it was
the
never
humor
a
thing,
problem in truth,
yeah,
only in the dream. Yeah.
the humor thing. A very recent example in another online course group. There's a friend who she had a dream where Jesus was talking to her, and she was asking Jesus, well, what really is the ego? And in this dream that she had, she just was recounting this very recently. She said that Jesus in the dream said, just pig farts. And, and she was like, what? She was taken aback. She's like, wait a minute. I asked a serious question. I'm paraphrasing this all completely,
Right, right, right.
but
But
it was
I
like,
asked a serious question.
but then, it's just like, well, it's about as ridiculous uh, as you can get. But that's really pretty much what everyone's ego is. It's just, it's
Yes.
just, it's
That
just
is hysterical.
flatulence on an unimaginable scale that we've taken seriously, right? And
Mark would think that was
and
so funny.
and then we kind of in this recent conversation got into the Animal Farm quote, where the pigs decided they were different than the other animals in the barnyard. If you remember George Orwell's book, or
Yes.
if you haven't, anyway. But
Yes.
at one of the
Yeah.
first things that they wrote on their new rules was all animals are equal, and then dot dot dot. But some animals are more equal than others,
Than others. Yeah.
and I think that's kind of the clue is when we're taking those little pig farts seriously. That is
Right.
the basically brain farts of the ego mind, and we get in all kinds of mischief in that with that. But it
Absolutely.
has had no effect on our real being, our real innocence
No.
that we all share. Yeah,
No,
yeah,
no, it hasn't. And
yeah,
what a great way to just dispel seriousness in that in that moment.
yeah,
Her
yeah,
dream with that.
yeah.
Oh my God, it's so great. I I feel like we can all be lighter all the time. Again, not the world isn't light.
Without
It's
methane,
dark and
even
heavy.
with or without methane, right?
With or without.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
sure, for
yeah, yeah,
sure.
yeah.
But oh, that's too fun. I'm gonna think of that now. I gotta tell that to Mark.
Oh no.
Gets that.
Oh no.
Yeah, I gotta tell him that. It's so funny.
Another brains, uh, you know, head sticker, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, the head stickers. Yes, like
Yeah.
I was telling you before we started the broadcast, my husband Mark's taking piano lessons or whatever. He's very good. We're gonna go out and do some gigs and stuff. I'm gonna
Oh,
send him a
fun.
keyboard. We have friends
Cool.
that do it. My sister Gary may chime in
Sure.
anyway. It's an
Cool.
aside, but we all love singing and everything. He's taking piano lessons. And he really wants to work on his chops. Well, his piano teacher is in a Steely Dan um, tribute band who's really good. And we went to see them at this jazz restaurant, this jazz club over by where we live on Sunday. And I cannot get the Steely Dan songs out of my head because I mean they're so good. I mean, whether people like them or not, it was the fabric. You always hear them all the time, and they're kind of just a timeless sound. I don't think anyone
Hmm.
really sounds like Steely Dan. So I
Hmm.
was jumping, bouncing around the house singing Peg earlier. And I just, I just love it. I can't get it out of my head. But
So
just
the trick now is to take that same principle and apply it to daily workbook lesson or whatever you've just read from the course and make that the head sticker for the day, right?
that's right.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
But that's just a
which
matter of motivation, as the course reminds us.
just
It's
a
like,
matter of motivation. Yeah, I could see peace instead of this.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, forgiveness is the key to happiness. One of my favorites is I loose the world from all I thought it was. When I got triggered a few weeks ago, and I was just like, oh, why? I don't know why. I don't know why she does that. I don't know what is she thinking, you know? Right away, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I thinking?
Mhm.
There's more unconscious guilt coming up to be healed. I'm looking at it in myself right now. I'm realizing my innocence. I don't have to project that out. That image that I see, you know, we're never forgiving truth, guys. You
Right.
know, we're forgiving illusions.
Mhm.
We're
We're
not even
denying the
forgiving the
denial of
truth.
truth, right?
That's right. We're denying the denial of truth.
Yeah.
So I did again, I kind of just walked it back. You know, it was pretty quick. And I just was like, yep, gosh, I forgive my another opportunity. Class was in session. I took that projected image and that, you know, whether or not that person is behaving right or wrong in the world in your dream isn't the point anymore. When you bring it back and you recognize it's your projection, if there's something to say or do or suggest, you're coming from the right mind. It'll be with totally different energy, you know? And so I would walk that back and I said, yep, class is in session. I got more guilt to heal. I'm putting on my 80s tunes and I'm just, you know, driving around, whatever. And you just walk it back, but it's not denial. It's just looking. But yes, to your point, you deny the denial of truth. That's the proper use of the ego has denied the truth. So we're denying the ego's denial of truth, which is the proper use of denial, which
And it
is
isn't
good.
shouting it down. It's just saying, nah,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
right.
not buying today, or at least this moment, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
exactly.
Just one moment at a
I
time.
speaking of, I was just sharing a bunch of experiences. I don't know why. I hope they're helpful. I just felt compelled to, you know, share just things that kind of been happening lately. And I drive around Los Angeles and I see the same things all the time in our area, you know, same restaurants and people and your grocery store and everything. Sometimes I drive around and it just looks like a set. It just looks like a backdrop. It looks like I am just, it was like a lucid dream. Like you're just body just moving through this little thing. I have those experiences more and more. And it doesn't mean anything, and people don't have to, it's just sharing one way that sometimes in everybody's mind gives them the experiences that are helpful to them, but just holding on to everything so loosely. I pulled into the Pavilion's parking lot, which is a grocery store here. I was just walking through the aisles. I'm like, gosh, and bodies need all this food. We need this. And I'm
Such
like,
high
but
maintenance
it's
machines.
so high maintenance. And I just was smiling internally. And I'm like, I am going to get the bananas. I am going to get the cilantro. I am going to
I'm
do
I'm
the,
I'm running a
but
grocery errand right after this too, so not to worry.
right. And isn't it interesting? But you just go through and things just seem a little bit lighter. And then when the heavy stuff hits or you see something or your mind is so trained that you begin to interpret that the heavy stuff as part of the dream or whatever. Not that you won't give money, blood, help someone off the street. It's nothing that you're not doing. But when mind is all there is, and the body's doing everything that it's doing from the perspective of we're all one, reminding the other minds in the dream
Hmm. Hmm.
silently, giving them that they can remember and treat it, then you've really got something there and you feel good because there's just one of us. So it just comes back to you. So I was just floating around my neighborhood the other day, just like, all right, and just miracle ready. If something's going to come up, I'm in this state where I know what I can do with it. I
Hmm.
can forgive it, you know?
That's very cool. Very cool. As you were sharing that, I was thinking about how we've been here about 8 weeks in Arizona, and
Your new place.
yeah, it's and I go for long walks in the mornings, which are wonderful,
Mm,
and
beautiful.
people are very friendly here. It's basically a retirement community, and I was thinking,
Nice.
you know, almost every person, or at least every other person you meet says, hi, good morning, how's it going? I was thinking, oh, I've just gone from one Truman Show to another here.
One for well, really, yeah.
Except I don't look that much like Jim Carrey, but but anyway, but it's just kind of
But you're as funny
the
and
surreal,
as clever
the
as Jim
surrealness
Carrey.
of the dream is just becoming more and more obvious. Anyway, yeah. So thank you.
Yeah, I totally get that. I
Yeah.
totally get that. And you are as funny and as quick as he is. You guys, it's so funny. Yeah, the Truman Show. Well, that was a big wake up call. I mean, that's a lot of disclosure here, like the
Yeah.
Matrix was, and that, but we're
Yeah.
just in this
This
seeming
little bubble.
reality. Yeah.
Very unstable bubble that they go to great lengths to make it seem like it's stable in that show, right? Except when then the
That's
lamp drops out of the sky,
my
right, and
God,
crashes
that's
in front of it.
hysterical. It just
Yeah, yeah,
falls out. The
yeah,
lamp,
yeah.
the lighting falls out of the
I
sky. It's just like, hmm.
I have one more Jim Carrey anecdote to share that
Oh,
I
good.
I might have shared in another conversation with you, but I'm not. I know I've with others, but he was presenting an award at the Golden Globe Awards
Okay.
probably 4 or 5 years ago. So
Okay. I,
give or take a couple of years. Anyway, it doesn't matter, and it just doesn't matter. Uh, and and he uh, before he said um, he stepped up to the podium. The announcer says, "And now here's two-time Golden Globe winner Jim Carrey here to present the next award," or something like that. And so Jim Carrey walks up the podium and says, "That's right. I'm Jim Carrey, two-time Golden Globe Award winner. And sometimes I lay awake at nights wondering, will I be will I become a third Golden Globe winner? And will that be enough?
yeah.
Or is two enough? And will it ever be enough? I'm
Yeah.
paraphrasing greatly, but that was kind of the gist of it. But
Yeah.
but
I did see that
yeah,
one.
but
Yeah.
I was just like, what
Yeah.
he says, but these award shows are good. We should have them, and
Oh, yeah. We should have them.
they
Yeah.
serve a function. And I mean, not that he was trying to negate what he said, but he was doing.
No, but
Now he was
that's,
meeting people on the level that the award show was held at, right?
yes.
And at the same time, imparting, I thought, a really wonderful truth is like that the ego is an intrinsically unstable platform. It's just there's
Right.
no stability in a dualistic thought system.
Is
And
anybody
he
really better than anyone else? Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, because the innocence is really based on oneness. Without
Yeah.
oneness, there's no innocence, and it's intrinsically unstable. Yeah.
Beautifully said. That's right. And I do remember that. Yeah, that was a while back, but I do remember that because he's very metaphysical and he
Yeah.
throws in,
Yeah.
things all the time or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, does that make me good enough? Does that fill my void? Whatever.
Exactly. Exactly. But
Nothing in the world's gonna do it.
yeah. In fact, probably we haven't talked since the last time. It's probably been a couple of months since we talked, give
Yeah.
or take. And I think since then, my wife Nancy and I went to go see the Barbie movie. And if you haven't
Oh,
seen it, it's wonderful. Uh,
I
uh,
saw it.
yeah, and I thought the scene in there where Ken kind of realizes that's like I'm again paraphrasing something to the effects like, oh, I've been predicating my whole well-being sense of well-being on whether or not Barbie approves of me, kind of thing.
Right.
And it was like, oh yeah, well, we all do that. I mean, we all think that the world needs to somehow approve or appreciate
Yes.
or all that kind of stuff. And it's like, what if that doesn't matter? Like Krishnamurti said when he
Yeah.
asked what his secret was, he said, well, he says, I'll tell you my secret. I don't mind what happens.
Beautiful.
And if we don't care what's happening or not happening in a dream that's intrinsically unstable,
That's
then we're
right.
free, right?
That's amazing again that you brought that up because one of my like lessons, in the dream when we talk about just different things that, we're working on, but people have boundaries or this or that, within the dream.
Mm-hmm.
I remember this in my 20s. I was in the spiritual buffet line and I was reading just everybody, Shakti Gawain, and I'm sure I've told this story before, and Wayne Dyer and all these great people. I'm just escaping me, but everybody knows
Yeah,
them, Deepak Chopra, whatever.
sure.
And I came to this realization. Now I had to practice, I had to remember it after that. But I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so oh, what did you say? You said it. What if I didn't need approval? What if my who I am wasn't based on what someone thought of me? And I first really got in touch with that in the 90s, and I did feel free. I still had to work on it when I was, but
Mhm.
I was like, oh my God, I realized it's like I snapped out of a trance. For some reason, we all have our things in this lifetime, some of us, many of them that we're working on. But one of my things was just the approval. I felt like I just needed this external approval. I was afraid sometimes to make a certain decision. I'm like, well, what's someone going to think about that? And I had a big chunk of that, for lack of a better way to describe it, chunk of that fall away. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be perfect, but not everybody's going to like what I do. I mean, how can
It just
you?
doesn't matter, though.
It just doesn't matter. And
Thank
I
you, Bill Murray.
really felt freer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I felt really free. I was
yeah,
like, oh my
yeah.
God, I'm just gonna be, and the irony is people aren't, I'm not doing anything really wrong or anything anyway. It's just the ego makes you think that you're not good enough in some way, that you want to make sure you're not upsetting people, or
Well,
I
just
don't
the whole
know.
premise of incompletion
Yeah.
is really the
Yeah.
basis and the foundation of the idea of sin, separation, substitution, specialness, guilt, fear, death, duality. I mean, it's all a package deal. You can't have a fragmented oneness and be at peace, right?
Exactly. And something else just occurred to me in my healing journey, which was I got to the point a couple years later where I was like, wait a minute, that's actually very egocentric of you to think that you are people, the sun is going to rise and fall based on whether you behave the way you're supposed to, or the way you want people to perceive you, or whatever. It's like, there's the ego. I'm not the center of it. Meaning, it just
Yeah,
was so funny. I was just coming to this realization, like, well, deep down, that's pretty egocentric of you
yeah.
too.
I think the course calls that, all those kind of pity, martyrdom, victimhood things is
Yeah.
arrogant, because it basically
Yes, it's
says my
arrogant.
my
That's
opinion, my
it.
interpretation of a
That's it.
dream is more important than God's knowledge of my reality. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautifully said. See, you say in two sentences, I take a long
We're
roundabout
both saying the
way to
same thing, though.
say
We're all saying the same thing. We're all in
I'm
the same
so
boat.
full.
Yeah. Well,
Oh
I
my
know we've
God.
learned way over our normal time, but this has been such a wonderful conversation.
Oh,
So,
it's so funny. I
you have
didn't even
anything
know
you
the
want to
time.
announce,
Oh, we
Jackie?
did. We
Yeah.
did have the time. Um, let's see. I do have Miracle Share. I'm
Yeah.
the Miracle UK
Yeah. Very cool.
people
Very
who
cool.
we love.
I think I've seen the
I'm
announcements.
going to
Yeah. Yeah.
be their September um, person for the Miracle Cafe for the
Excellent.
talk.
Excellent.
And I don't have the link for that right now, but if
I'll send it
people
to me and
can,
I'll put it in the
I'll send it to
video.
you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Mark, we're doing just a little work on my website. So my website's probably down right now, but I will say people can go to JackieLoraJones.com when they want to, maybe not today or tomorrow, but I'm just tweaking a few things. And I think that's it just for upcoming things. I'm
Okay.
working on my forthcoming book. But thanks for asking. If people want to join my newsletter, that's where I put out, information. And yeah, so
Very cool. Very cool. Well, thanks as always for a wonderful conversation.
this is amazing. It's so great to be back with you again.
Likewise.
Thank you
Likewise.
so much. We'll do it
Oh,
again soon.
absolutely.
All right.
Right.